Okay, once again with 6.2, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the square root property, which we're going to call this, because it takes less time to actually write. Remember, what we're doing when the square root property is we're looking for something squared equals a constant. Usually x squared or x plus 3 squared or whatever it is, it's something squared equals a constant called d. And we call it d because c was already taken. Okay. Here's an example. X squared minus 4 equals 0. Use the square root property. Well, what we have to do is get x squared by itself. That's job number 1. How do we do that? We move the 4 over by adding 4 to both sides, so x squared equals 4. And because 4 is a positive number, we know there are going to be two roots. X equals 2 and x equals minus 2, both of which squared equals 4. Now we could have done this using the factoring method. You could have factored it and you could have said, well, x squared minus 4, well, geez, if we factor that, that's x plus 2, x minus 2 equals 0. And from that you would say, well, geez, minus 2 and 2. Well, that's the same thing. Okay, so the square root property is a way of solving certain equations by recognizing that you've got stuff squared on one side. Here's another example, and this is a little bit more tricky, but if you're forced to use the square root property like this, you can do it. 3x squared minus 8 equals 0. I can't factor that. I can't use the distributive property. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. So here's what I will do. I will force myself into using the square root property simply by moving everything but x squared over to the right. So we'll add 8 to both sides. And then we'll divide both sides by 3. Now that's a positive number. It's ugly, but it's a positive number. And this is x squared. So if I get the square root of this, I'll have x. So x equals the square root of 8 over 3. And that's going to be plus or minus, because there's a negative square root of that. I don't know what it is, but this is your answer here.